Today we are going to have a conversation, many conversations, but the conversation I am facilitating is called Technology Facilitated GBV, or Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. I've given you a small paper. For those who don't have pens, share, maybe at the back there. I'll be asking just one question, which has an yes or no answer. As an organization, we are always in the process of collecting data and doing research to just find out about things, so that even as we deliver interventions, as we deliver whatever content we are delivering, it can be very intentional and very customized to the needs of the people we are delivering to. So the question I'm going to ask is a yes or no answer, and I'm going to first introduce you to, I don't know if you will help me, to those three items. Femicide, I'm sure all of us know what femicide is. We have been, and I'll show you some of the statistics, we have been losing women and girls who are killed on account of their gender, or because they are women, because they are girls. So that is what we call femicide. And what is gender-based violence? But the gender-based violence can happen to both women and men. There are men who have gone through gender-based violence. So gender-based violence is not just about women or girls, it's about men and women. And it can be either physical, emotional, psychological, verbal. It can happen in many forms. And technology facilitated GBV. Before we got gadgets, before we got phones, laptops, tablets, got into apps like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that, we never knew about how GBV can be committed through technology. But you'll be very surprised that a lot of gender-based violence is happening through our gadgets. It starts through our gadgets with maybe hate speech, insults, sexting, sharing of nudes, threats, yeah, people through your phone, people finding out about you through other, your location and that, and threatening you, and it is happening a lot. Research has been done by, I think, World Health Organization, if I'm not wrong, that 90% of students in our colleges and in our universities have gone through gender-based violence or witnessed someone go through it. So that paper you're holding there, and it's very confidential, please answer me yes or no. Just write yes or no, whether you have personally gone through gender-based violence or you have been closely associated. You have witnessed your mother go through it, or you have witnessed someone very close to you go through it. You just write yes or no. As in not yes or no, you write yes if the answer is yes. The other person to write no if the answer is no. Just write it and fold the paper. Don't write your name. And I'll ask Ivy to collect for me the papers when they are folded and put for me here. I'll be able to do a quick survey later. Just write the answer as I progress. Let's progress. And the statistics, both in Africa, are very alarming. And I'm very happy because we have the Ministry of Gender represented here today. And I'm sure she'll be able to also speak to that. This is a conversation that not only needs to start here, but it needs to continue with us, talking to our relatives, talking to friends, because sometimes people are stigmatized out of having gone through gender-based violence. And we end up hearing someone has killed themselves, killed, and yet probably you had information that could have been able to help them. 1 in 3 women, imagine 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual abuse. You have been slapped, you have been kicked, you have been hit, and you've been activities without your 1 out of 3. We have 1, 2, 3. 1 of them. 1. Very alarming. It's very alarming. And it is very shocking. Definitely, these conversations are a bit shameful sometimes because of our norms, our culture. So people don't really talk about it. But then God again to technology, people are able to capture when that is happening sometimes Though sometimes it happens in hidden spaces, but when it happens in public, sometimes people are able now to capture and share. It's become, people have already known about it more. Otherwise, it's not that femicide was not happening. It was happening in the past. GBV has been happening, but most people are not willing to talk about it. But now conversations are going on, and I want us to progress with this conversation in our spaces. 48,000 victims are killed in their own homes by intimate partners or family members. Can you imagine? The people you love, people who are close to you, people you are related to, people you trust, you know, people who should be protecting you, are the people who are killing you, are the people who are killing us. It is sad. It's not a stranger who's coming to kill you. It's someone who knows you, who spends time with you, who knows all your secrets. It is sad. It is very sad. And in Kenya now, it has become such a big, huge animal. In 2023, femicide count documented 152 femicide cases. Those were the ones documented. There are very many others that have not been documented. There are many girls and many women who have died, and we don't know what killed them. Because you know dead people don't talk, yeah? Yeah, Ivy, you collect for me the papers, please. Thank you. Oh, they are being collected. Thank you. Let's go on. Who is killing? We've just talked about this. Look at this. Men like me. Who's killing? Our husbands. Can you imagine? People we declared or you declared love to. And this does not mean that women are also not killing husbands. They are. Only that the statistics are minimal. But women are also killing men. But people who are close to you, husbands, your boyfriend, people you've declared love to, people you spend time with, people you shared a bed with, probably shared even with. Strangers doing it. Sometimes, especially using social media, they approach you and they start by becoming very nice. And this is happening a lot to our teenagers. Our teenagers are getting lured by people they think and can trust online. And yet these people are monsters in real life. Friends, husbands, family member, and ex-boyfriends. You might think ex-husbands are the ones who are killing, or ex-boyfriends. And yet the biggest statistics is actually husband and boyfriend. Let's go to the next slide. Different forms of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. I was talking to some of the facilitators earlier and telling them there are people who have gone through gender-based violence and they do not know they have gone through gender-based violence. Can you imagine? That you're in a relationship, that you're in a marriage, that you're in a, wherever you are, in a school, in a college, in a family setup, and you go through gender-based violence without knowing you're going through it. Why? Because some of the things that happen to us sometimes have been accepted by culture. If someone insults you day in, day out, nakwambia we ni mujinga, hata unanga akili, you know, they happen, isn't it? Every day, imagine you wake up, someone tells you how stupid you are, how useless you are, how you cannot account for anything. And you think that is normal. So you live with it. And Lincoln probably will be able to tell you what that does to your brain. Or what does that to you if you continue through that process for many years. So there are different types and forms of technology-facilitated GBV. And we've done it through examples, like cyber stalking. You know, there are people who cyber stalk you. There are husbands who have installed apps in your phone to just track you and track your movement. There are people who will pick your phone within seconds. They have put something or an app that can be able to allow them to read your messages, to read your WhatsApp messages. And they tell you things you wonder, hey, I never spoke to you about that. They have invaded your privacy. And they are seeing what you're seeing. They are following you. Can you imagine your private conversations with your friends, with your mother, with whoever it is? Someone is able to view that. Non-consensual image sharing. Have you seen people who send you nudes without Mtu anaamka tu anaanza kukutumia nudes. Nudes, you know? Photos. There's a day I opened a site and I saw a photo of a man. I don't know how it came to my link. A photo of a man having sex with a young boy. Very young boy, looking like a 6-year-old. And I was like, how did this come to my phone? Like, you know, I'm busy looking through, I think, Google or something, and that link just came in. And I was like, why would anyone in their right mind do this kind of content? But there are people who intentionally send you that content. Non-consensual. You have not asked for it. You know, there are those who want to see pornography intentionally. But this one, you have not asked for it. Deep fake abuse. Nowadays, with the AI, my friend, people can take your face and put a body and do crazy things, you know? And it has happened. It has happened to keep people in politics. It has happened to journalists. It has happened in colleges. Someone likes you, you don't like them. They take your face and put it in a sexual activity, and people think it is you. And because usually with social media, you don't have right of response, you don't have the right of reply, because how many people will you reply to? How many people will you talk to and tell them, it wasn't me? It is you, because it is your face. With the AI, a lot is happening. A lot is happening. To the young people, we need to guard our social media pages with a lot of, I don't know. We need to be able to guard our information. Don't put out so much information out there. About your relationships, about your photos, you know, videos. Don't take videos of your sexual activity with whichever partner you have, because this can be used against you in future. In 2018, I was working in an organization, and one of my colleagues, they were taking the sister and taken like a packet of pills. Why had she taken a packet of pills? Because she was in a relationship with someone, and when they were in that relationship, they used to take videos of themselves engaging in sexual activities. But now they broke up, and that guy published those images. Guess to who? Guess to who? To the mother. To the mother of this girl. The first person she sent that, those videos, and they were very gross videos, was to the mother. Imagine, to mama ya umto. She couldn't take it. She didn't die. She took pills. She was taken to hospital. She survived. But you can imagine what that does to her. What does that? I mean, that does to her mental wellness. What that does to their relationship with the mother. It is traumatic. Next. There are many forms of, we just picked a few. There's doxing, posting personal details. People pick your details. You've seen these with the Gen Z demonstrations. Si tuliziona, unachukua phone ya Raila, namba yake, mna post. Si ndio? That is what, you didn't know what you are doing, but that is what exactly you are doing. Doxing. That you like a girl, and you realize she doesn't want you, and you know her details, you know where she lives, you know their family, you pick those details and post them online. Sextortion. There are people who lure you online sometimes, and you engage in, they take the photos of themselves and ask you to take photos of themselves. We do a lot of online safety for children, and we've seen this a lot. And the child trusts that person, thinking they're age mates. And once they finish having your nudes, then they start coercing you now to give them money. Ask your parents to, ama nizirushe hizi picha. So they extort you using your very private information. Online harassment, I'm sure most of us have gone through this, especially if you're advocating for certain things. You know, you write about something and people call you names. This is happening a lot to social media influencers. It's happening a lot to people who are online. people walk name. And sometimes they tell you things that are true. Wanakuambia wewe ni munono kama nguruwe, you know, and for sure you're fat, but do you really have to remind me? You know, they tell you things sometimes that are very painful, that are very personal. Catherine? The drivers and enablers, I think I've mentioned a few. Guard your private information with a lot of care. Don't overshare. I don't see the essence of taking your private sexual sessions and capturing them. I think it is terrible when you just do it without taking the photos. Ama, what do you guys think? Is it sinivo? Eh, it's better. It's better that way. Lincoln, I'm sure, will talk about perpetrators' motivation. Some of these people who are doing this, who are participating in femicide, who are participating in gender-based, the perpetrators, they are not here. Something happened to them. Lincoln will be able to talk about that. And we need to be able to support the people we are with. And we need to be very open. If you're going through some of these things, please speak out. Nowadays, there are very many support systems. I'm sure the State Department will also be able to tell us. The police is now involved and very much aware about gender-based violence. They have a gender-based desk. People are willing to support. There are very many organizations, even us. You come to us and tell us you're going through gender-based violence. We try and do everything possible to take care of you. Take you to a safe space, connect you to the right connections, and so that you can be safe. We don't have to lose any other girl to femicide. We don't have to lose any other woman to gender-based violence. Yeah. These are some of the impacts of technology-facilitated GBV. It leads you to isolation. And I like using acronyms. It brings a lot of mental strain, mental health strain, power imbalance. Unaona, sometimes, you know, there's conversation of men are better than women, women are better than men. I think we should not be having those conversations. We are people first, before we were women and before we were men. And no one did an application to God and said, please bring me on earth as a woman or bring me on earth as a man. I think the conversation should be about people, what we can do for each other, how we can relate with one another, how we can support one another, rather than what organ are you carrying. Nothing to do with anything. Whether you have a penis or whatever you have, it has nothing to do with what makes you as a person. So let's stop these things. Wewe ni mwanamke. I know it starts from our cultures. Wewe ni mwanaume. Wewe ni mwanamke kwa hivyo kuna hii huwezi fanya. O wewe ni mwanaume kwa hivyo kuna hii unaweza fanya. Let's just first treat people as humans. It leads to anxiety, career damage, the people who've lost their jobs because of technology-facilitated GBV, technology exploitation, we've talked about sextortion, systematic inequality. And I'm sure Sylvia can be able to tell you that because she's an advocate of people with disabilities. It is happening to people with disability. We did a research with Catherine the other day about online safety for people with intellectual disabilities. And we'll be so shocked. There are humans in Kenya, who are taking advantage of people who are 18, luring them online, sleeping with them, impregnating them, giving them diseases. People, not outside Kenya, in this country, in this Nairobi, who are in shock. We sat with those children. We did focus group discussions, and the things they told us, personally, I went home and cried. I went home and sat with my children and talked, feeling, am I doing enough? Are my children safe? These people are playing games online. Then chats come through. But there's some of us how many of us are parents here? Parents? Yeah, we are quite a number. You'll be so shocked that some of those games that our children are playing avenues for perpetrators to come and start speaking to your children. And when I started being very careful and very concerned about what is happening even to my own children, one day I sat and I started seeing some things and I'm like, what? What is happening? Who is this who's trending you this? They are able to chat with strangers, not only in this country, but also in Kenya. And those strangers, some of them are perpetrators of funny things. Things are happening, guys. Online safety, not only for grown-ups, is happening to also our children. Yes. How do we protect ourselves? Please stay aware. Be careful of the spaces you're being in. There's a lot of drug abuse happening, and some of these things happen when you're not in your right mental capacity to think right. So be very careful. Nowadays there are very many parties for young people. There's a lot of weed happening. There's a lot of drinking happening, and you're going to spaces with people you don't know. So it's important to be very much aware and to call out. Sometimes, you might be taken from Nairobi to Naivasha through a friend or through friends. And when you're there, then you realize it wasn't just a trip. It was a planned event for you to go do whatever you need to do. Remember to trust the people who are around you, whether it's your relatives, whether it's your friends. Feel free to let people know or to speak out. And I'll share with you some of the numbers you can be able to call. Some are toll free. You can be able to call and say you're in danger. At least someone might come to rescue you. Access support, I've talked about some of the numbers, and I'm sure some will be able to talk to us about that. Foster boundaries. Have you ever felt someone is in your boundaries? Personally, I'm very quick to call out bad behavior when you start touching me or you start thinking you can be able to, you can make comments about my sexuality. I call it very fast. I call you out very fast. Because sometimes it starts from that, from simple comments, from someone coming and just tapping your ass, someone else coming and just rubbing your boobs, someone else coming and, people doing things. In our time, we used to be parked in matatus and people used to stand next to you. Jimmy, you remember those days. These young people have come in time when the matatus are not crowding. Yeah, they used to stand behind you, Sylvia, you remember. They stand behind you and they're rubbing on you and they're rubbing on you because they're thinking you're not doing what they're doing. They're taking advantage of you. And some of them finish their job there, unfortunately. Educate yourself. This is what we are doing today. And please, be ready to report. Be ready to report. Even when someone is threatening you, please report. Because some of the people intimidate us through threats, and they continue perpetrating bad things to us. Yeah? And let's speak to one another. Let's share what we are going through. There's a lot happening in our country. There's a lot happening in the world today. The world is an interconnected society. Let's be there for one another. Let's not allow any one of us to go through things that we can be able to support each other on. Next. These are some of the numbers which are working. Police emergency numbers, I'm sure most of you don't know 999 actually works. It does. It does. National Child Helpline for I'm very passionate about children because they're helpless. I always wonder, an adult taking advantage, especially having sexual intercourse with a child of 6 years. We've seen cases of people having sex with children of 7 years. What did you see in that child? What is that person seeing in that child? And these numbers, anywhere I go, I try to tell the children, in case you are in any problem, pick a phone from anywhere and call 116. And I think this should be taught in schools, it should be taught in churches, it should be told in mosques, it should be told everywhere where children are. Because our children are really going through a lot of problems and they don't know where to go to. Kenya GBV hotline. Did you know there is a GBV desk in our police stations? It is there. There are police women and men who have been trained to take care of GBV cases. So we are getting, guys. Counseling hotline. One of us is a counseling psychologist. He can also help. And the other is the child line. I think that is the end of my presentation. I'll be able to give you the results of our research today after I put together the data. And thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
We can do better than that. Let's give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Asante. So I like how this is going. So, culture, psychosocial capacity. That's the next direction. So now we have information. We've seen the experiences. Knowledge is power. Because whatever happens to us is not our fault. Don't ever blame yourself for back in the day, matatus are crazy. Don't ever blame yourself for being in a situation. It is not your fault. However, knowledge gives you. This next speaker has changed the lives of many in Africa, Asia, Middle East, has spoken in Johns Hopkins University and Nairobi University as well. And so he understands what those challenges are in as far as mental power. Yeah, because knowledge is key. Let's give him an applause as he comes on stage. Kinyanjui Ndogoni, karibu sana.
Asante sana. Ladies and gentlemen, wow, where do I start? Where do I start with all this? That was very passionate. The statistics are not good. So what do you do with the statistics which are not good? I'm a counseling psychologist, but I do psychosocial work. I also teach young students at the University of Years. I'm a father of 5 men now. I asked them to come. They told me they're not interested because they are beyond my capacity, and I'm a grandfather of. So I don't know how to bring girls. You realize that, isn't it? But when you listen to what the data is talking about, it's very difficult, isn't it? But there is a question people have been asking here, saying that, what do we do? My only response to that is that it starts in your head. It can only be stopped from your head. Do you have the statistics of people who have heads? No, I'm just asking. It starts from your head. It can only be stopped from your head. Thank you very much. So that's what we do in mental health. Not only for people who have difficulties, but right now we are also doing mental health support for people who are doing very well. Because you have more capacity than you'd ever imagine you have. But there are certain things that might happen in your life that makes it difficult for you to access your full mental capacity. Let's run a few slides here so that we can have later a bit of discussion. Okay, what is GBV? I'm not going to go to that again because it has very well been defined by Dr. Beth and others. Jimmy told us. Well, why would a human being kill another one? You know, it requires a lot of energy to kill. I've worked in war situations. I've talked with the soldiers. They have told me they kill for work. But some of them don't kill for work. They do it for other reasons. Femicide, it is intentional killing of a human being. Intentional. So there is an intention in your mind. And we would like to know what drives that intention. Okay? Now, you've been given the statistics. 97 femicide cases in this country. Has anybody killed someone recently? Anyone? Or they're on social media? You don't know, I teach students and I keep telling them, you begin to talk the truth. Correct? Jimmy was saying we must go to the underlying causes. This is very serious. Next. I want to be pretty fast. So why? What are the psychosocial drivers? What drives people to do the things they do? It all starts in the head. 1, gender norms. A man can do this, a woman can do this. I'm in therapy. I see clients every day. We only see people who are struggling. People come and tell me, a man can do this. I say, why would a woman not do it? Nobody has ever answered the question. And the debate I hear in this country more is about even this idea of women saying, what do they say sometimes? That what a man can do, femicide, and the gender-based violence. Because you've already put me in a competition with a partner. What is this better? Is it gender role? What is it? Nobody has ever defined it. Yes. Okay, childhood experiences. I'll tell you, in the researches we have conducted, many of the people who perpetrate psychological, physical, or even spiritual violence have childhood traumas. They were damaged much, much earlier. So they are only manifesting something that has been in their mind for a long time. And by the way, I need here to mention something, and I should have mentioned right from the beginning. When we conduct these workshops about mental health and psychosocial support, I might mention something that triggers you to remember or to recall something that happened to you. Feel free. There's an open space. In our place, we call it an open space because it's a safe space. Don't suppress it. If you want to feel about what happened to you, it's okay. That's a beginning of your journey to healing. Because I know many of the clients, and I've seen many people across many, at least in 20 countries in Africa, a few countries out there in Asia, many of the perpetrators of crime and violence have had child experiences, either by choice or by force. Cultural practices, some cultures, you can see I'm an old man. There are some issues that used to be very helpful in the culture of the old, and they knew how to deal with it. So you are given the skills to survive in that culture. Most of these cultural norms, cultural traditions have been overtaken by time. And old men, young men and women are struggling to fit in new culture. So we say your mental map must be adjusted to what you are confronting today. That's why she's asking, why would an old man have a sexual relationship or abuse a child? I can tell you from the statistics, Doc, that many of the abusers, if a man is 40, or probably who is 20, or probably a young girl who is like 7, you said, that guy, when he was 7 years old. Data shows us that. So he is reliving that experience, and he's not aware. We don't know, we kill them also, isn't it? Half of the people in prison in this country and elsewhere have challenge. Whether we accept it, that's what the data is telling us. Now, of course, substance abuse, I don't even talk much about this because those who abuse, particularly university students, where we spend most of our time, substance abuse is a manifestation of something. You have medication. You're trying to medicate internal pain. Where we got it from, you may not know. So, alcohol, drug, and when you skated, your traumatic material comes up. That's why you said Naivasha? You know some of this? No. I'm even learning about technology. Now they keep, by the time I left college, there were no laptops. So they take you to Naivasha, you take something, and there is happening in Nairobi. I've go for these house parties. They go for house parties. They cannot concentrate in school today. They bring them for therapy. You don't know. They were given alcohol. The trauma materials came, and then they reacted like that. Elewana, am I speaking something that you can get? Some of us may have experienced some of these things. Then what is the link between power dynamics and femicide? A man can only do certain things. If I can't do those things, man enough. Because it has been defined by a structure, either in your culture or in the system. What a man can do? Oh my goodness, no. They can't do better. They can do something different. Correct? You don't set yourself for failure. Violence is often used to maintain power. Okay? If I'm less powerful, I will look for a person who I can destroy so that I can feel powerful. Do you understand that dynamic? It's all in the head. I think about 2 to 3 billion neurons in the brain. There are so many things happening to you now. You are looking at me, but some of your minds could be elsewhere. Where is it? Don't tell us, but I can always see. There's always other things going on. But brain is very powerful. Women face greater risk when living abusive relationships. I've had clients, even today, a woman educated, if education is a measure, comes and tells me my husband, my boyfriend, does not love me enough because he has not beaten me for the last 6 months. Ukweli. Unajua, do you have a boyfriend? Has he ever told you something crazy? No. Oh, you are very lucky. We need to clone that guy. Because people is control. If I have a problem, mostly trauma. I'll talk a little about trauma. If you are looking to survive, and sometimes it's very painful. You don't know how to survive. So you look for ways and means of disempowering other people to feel okay about yourself. It's a very complicated mental equation that goes into people's minds. I had a son in Uganda. He was fighting, then he came back and blah, blah, blah. Guy, they were almost in an ambush, right? And they had children running to where they were hiding from them. Knew that child was about 12 years old. They knew if this girl comes and tutajulikana, and we are done. So what did they do? He shot that child to save the battalion. Na ikaishia hapo because war, isn't it? But when he went back and got married, immediately his own daughter turned 13. Of course, that's how he came into therapy. Every night he was having the urge to kill her. To kill her, yeah. Every night he would feel the urge to kill this girl, his own daughter, at night. And the urge is so strong, he'll leave his house and go to a pub to drink alcohol. And then it continued, of course, at work, and then they asked him to come for therapy. How? He opened the guilt in his mind was so much because the girl was innocent. He basically felt like the only way to heal my trauma is to do what? To kill my own daughter at the same age. That's called a traumatic reaction. And it's many years. So, of course, there is also this idea of women. That's why women face greater risk, because they are said to be weak. But that's a fallacy, psychologically. Media portrayal. Do you see how media guys, do you know how to report bad news? By the way, how do they not report news? Like one here? Because people thrive on bad news. People thrive on pain. Societies that have experienced pain thrive on pain. And I trace this right from slave trade. Believe strongly, Africa is struggling with severe psychological underdevelopment, not economic development. We have enough resources, technology, people educated, there you are struggling. Psychological underdevelopment. People have gone through a lot of pain, a lot of transgenerational trauma. We keep going. Now, see, as we deal with the software, I don't mind about statistics. Please hold this one for me, because statistics don't mean much. One human life lost is one too many. Can't afford. Because you can imagine if you lose your life, the stress, the grief, the family, and I through grief myself. I know how painful it can be, and it's long life. So we look at the head. Your brain is simply, like now I can ask you another question. How do you choose to sit on that seat today? No, I'm asking you. How did you choose? It was the closest to you. But there was, this one doesn't have someone? Left. Did you know you did a lot of calculations in your head? And all the people who are here, if you're not coerced, if it was a choice. Our brain is, there's a left side and there's a right side. You analyze, logic, media. So if you talk to me within seconds, I'll have what your personality looks like. You want us to test? You want us to test? We will have an idea which part of and which is your most dominant part of you. So the moment we are people who are probably very statistical, very organized and all that, use mostly the left side of the brain, which is controlled by the right side of the hand. Artists, creatives, singers, All those people, young people in the university, follow. And I keep on asking, why, what is the reason you're following another human being? They're following. They fight about how many people are followers. Do you have that? I keep asking, what is the reason you are following that guy? I don't know. I just like, sure. That is a person who requires psychological, mental health adjustment. Own head. Because you can't answer it. Now, why did I bring this one here? Because that's who you are. If you choose left, maybe that's your personality. If you choose, it's not an accident. Now, when any of this part is destroyed by trauma, abuse, extreme pain, emotional, psychological, spiritual, or even physical, the information is taped in your brain. And it stays there like a cyst. Now we know with the neurologists, they take an image of your brain before trauma, after trauma, and we realize that a lot of your brain structures have been destroyed. You can't use it to think. So I don't know, some people, the young people, you are coming here, and you cannot function properly. So what we see are the signs and symptoms. Signs and symptoms. And I can tell you it can be painful. I can tell you it's tough. And it is deep-rooted in your personality. So how does trauma impact people who commit crime, who perpetrate gender-based violence? Both perpetrators and survivors. Because it's two. Take two. Okay? One, trauma results from exposure. If you're exposed to violence, abuse, life-threatening events, your mind keeps that and it puts it somewhere in your brain, either left or right hands of the brain. If you are a survivor of a terrible experience, you experience something called complex trauma. Your brain could be damaged much more than someone who was threatened by a lion. Trauma responses. There are 4 things you can do with the trauma when it is happening. You fight back, isn't it? I know some these ladies are told to carry gadgets. Some people have pepper spray. The data is bad. She gave us very terrible data, isn't it? You yourself, either with a gadget or with another method. If you can't fight, what do? Take off. Run. That's how the mind protects itself. If you can't fight, because you defeat your enemy, if you can't run, therefore you run from the trauma, what happens? Freeze. The moment you freeze, it is a part of your brain that freezes, and it freezes so much that it also freezes the body. Okay? That trauma, if you can't deal with it, it is transferred to the body, and it becomes a psychosocial material. All one needs is to touch you. She was very averse, doctor. You don't want people to touch you? But your body looks okay. Exactly. I would like to know why. There are reasons. When I was a young counselor, when we would see very difficult clients, my supervisor, my therapist would tell us, go home and change your clothes. Because you do want this material to be in your system. Today, many people going to see a physician, a doctor today, I don't know if there's a doctor here, 60% of the people who go to see a physician today, they are traumatizing trauma, not sick. And I chief shaft people would know that. It will reduce their cost of medication by half. People who go to see a doctor today, and you can go and Google, even you can Google now, are somatizing a problem from the head, stress-related. Even cancer now, they are researching to see. Most likely, it is a stress-triggered condition which changes your genetic material. Because of freezing. Your brain freezes, puts it in the body, all you need is someone to and it provokes. A very difficult situation. Or a peace. Sometimes people call it phone. So F. What does a peace mean? Many ladies know that. You want to be friends with your enemy. That is why many women, and sometimes men, the other day I had, in fact, soon you're going to marry a guy who was femicide, or male. He died out of depression because of abuse by the wife. He's being buried next week. Very sad. A peace is where you become, what is the good English? Yani unashikilia ule anakudhulumu for you to be able to survive. Some other people call it there's this English name. They did the study in Europe where people are hijacked Then they became so close with us that they did not even want to be rescued. Thank you. I will not ask you another question. Stockholm syndrome. Many people in this continent have that syndrome and they can't leave abusive situations. I know there are people who tell people leave, but they are in that phone. I only can survive in an abusive relationship. My time is okay? Survivors. Then there is trauma. Okay. Life-threatening. Survivors may normalize. Jimmy talked about it. You normalize pain because that's your safest space. You have had it psychological, physical, spiritual, body. Your mind knows how to deal with the pain only. Unatoa mtu kumpatia panadol anasema no. People who are depressed, sometimes they live on depression. Because you tell them to leave depression, what are they going to hold on? So you take through a therapeutic process to clear those pictures, to clear the trauma, be human again, and start acting differently. Okay, long-term trauma, that's what I was talking about, can actually affect your brain. Your brain structure changes, and you become a very bad person to yourself and to other people. And now you have to have those maladaptive behavior mechanisms. You have to adapt because your brain is not functioning properly. Survivors may normalize. Hujanichapa. See, they come to like, how can I provoke my husband or my wife to beat me? How do you deal with that? Let's go on. Avoidance. So how do you avoid? You avoid situations that remind you about trauma because it triggers painful memories in your brain. Hypervigilance. You in people. Phone rings. You go during the bombing in the this embassy. I had a client who left up and they have never and they will never go along that street. They are hypervigilant. Even where they work, they are always like this. I had little girls who they were saying, what is that who was in this other place? It was very popular in the violence at the Westgate. The girls would see that in school, wanamuona, and they can't concentrate. Hypervigilance, survivors remain alert, risk-taking behaviors. This alcohol, this multiple sex you people guys are having, these self-medication behaviors is basically risk-taking behaviors, and most of them are suicidal. Risk-cutting. Girls in schools, we know where you cut. They come with a laser blade. They cut. They cut their thighs. They are almost going to suicidal behavior, self-harm, abusive relationships. If you have been abused, God forbid, you will most likely abuse the person who is closest to you. That's why the highest people is that you kill your intimate partner, somebody who knows you, somebody you know very well. Then, of course, the perpetrators repeat the behavior because you are taking medication which is not healing you. So you keep getting a dose of violence. In fact, I suspect and I believe it is important to equally focus on the so-called perpetrators because their mind is damaged. Their mind is damaged. Now, this is what I was talking about. Intergenerational, intercultural violence within families is passed down. You saw your father, you saw your mother. That is what you know. It is now being passed from one child or from father to mother. It can be passed by anyone. And those people are very difficult to treat because they don't know where it came from. Is it from the culture? Is it from, they don't know. It is passed through emotions, anger, fear, guilt, shame, and love. I love you so much. If I see you with another human being, I'll kill you. Unregulated emotion. Social withdrawal, normalization, and economic impacts. Particularly transgenerational trauma. It can come from your child, from your father to your boy, to your mother, or it can come from one community. Even this, it is mostly transgenerational conflict within different ethnic communities in this country. How do you know? How do you know you are at risk? I'm going to quickly. Childhood abuse. If you had challenges in trauma, there is a high risk something is going to happen to you. Lack of economic opportunities. People will pay me either for sexual, transactional sex, or just for me to survive. Acceptance of violence as a conflict resolution method. Tutaonana, ulinitukana kwa on-site, I'll kill you. They do now those things of phone. Technology assisted. Mental health conditions. People people who have conditions like schizophrenia, depression, or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they are also likely candidates. So I tell people, go for assessment. How many people have gone for their own mental health assessment? Thank you. You know, even you don't. Just like you go for mental assessment, go for your mental. When I went for my own mental health assessment, they realized I was struggling with the depression from college. The beating, you were beaten by soldiers. And that changed my life. That's why I changed my profession. Because I was not functioning well. But it was years after. Hey, mental health conditions. What is the other one? Right? Did we change? That's why I was. Mental health conditions. Okay. Then aggressive male behavior reinforced at adolescence. Yani kama sasa hii when they are doing circumcision, we call it. They tell you, unajua hata mama yako akikwambia kitu mwambie, unajua I was circumcised last week. Mom, I'm not going to do that. They have messed it up. Transitions were very beautiful. Because you grow from a child, adolescence, middle age, old man like me. Now I'm struggling with age-related challenges. My fellow professors and other people are dying in 2 years after retirement, particularly us. And if we don't go earlier than you, we might perpetrate. Now, history of partner. If you've been beaten or you see somebody violated either by human beings or by other people, even politically, you probably have a controlling behavior to others. Family conflicts. Because of poverty, because of traumas, we have a lot of conflicts within families. Some of them can be managed. Sibling rivalry. You don't like your sister for some reason and you can't understand. You come for assessment, they will tell you why. You don't like your brother. Find a lot of complications in families. Imbalance in household power. Mimi ndio mkubwa kwetu. Asema, but that boy is more cleverer than you. Kanapata pesa mingi kukushinda. He's sorted. Then you can I'm the older brother. You must listen to me, whether I have something to say or not. Forced marriages. Madam, she told us, we must do research there. Forced marriages. This is traumatic relationship building. And it is perpetrated by adults. Then for jealous. Accusations of infidelity. Sitaki kumpatia story like this is infidelity thing. People even in their wives and their husbands are sleeping with other women without knowing what's going on. Okay, that one I will leave because we don't. Okay, I'll give you one test. Can you look at that picture quickly? Just what you see and also put it on a piece of paper. This is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Choose your number. This is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot of light. What is your mental health burden from your own perception? How much weight are you carrying? Is it number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5? This is a little private. If you are number 5, you need one. This is a tool that is used with communities to assess the levels of depression. Published. Because Africans are very visual. So if you find yourself here or any person, then let them get some help. Find out. Because they may be struggling with trauma or depression and their likelihood to be abused or to abuse someone. Leave it at that. We can have conversations. And thank you very much. Thank you for that courage. Say number 5. And I'm joking. Get this mic. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I know that surprised you, Kinyanjui. That, but let me tell you something. Huh? No, let me just say, you're very right. I know it surprised you as well that people don't go for mental health checkups. There is nothing wrong in going for those things. There's nothing wrong going for therapy. Nothing. Don't be honest. Mental is very important, okay? Allow me to introduce, because I know she needs to leave very quickly. She's a seasoned civil servant with 25 years of experience. Mrs. Kipkenei is an expert in gender and social development. Her leadership includes roles as acting CEO of the Women Enterprise Fund and affirmative action programs. She's a dedicated community leader, also serves on school boards and champions positive parenting to combat GBV. Let me repeat that again, positive parenting, because I remember when we were putting this program together, I told Catherine, we must have a component for parents, because that's where it starts from. You've heard it from Professor, childhood trauma, intergenerational trauma. No one just becomes bad. No one becomes a narcissist. No one becomes a killer. It starts from somewhere. They've seen it. Monkey see, monkey do. Yeah? So let's give another applause for our keynote speaker, Mrs. Magdaline Kipkenei. Karibu sana, ma'am.
Okay.
The verdict of the poll we just did during my session, 80% said yes, 20% said no. Can you see? Is that proof that we need to speak about this more? Just in this room, we are maybe around 50. 80% of us have either gone through or witnessed someone close to us going through gender-based violence. So it's a conversation that is not only affecting us, but affecting the people we are with around us, our families, our friends, and everyone around us. So let's take this conversation forward. Let's be very intentional about it, and let's be very vocal about it, because you can save a life just by speaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, moderator and my colleagues. Before I begin, I would like to request that we stretch a bit and then stretch your hand and say hi to me. Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure meeting all of you. You can have a seat. So just as I've been introduced, I'm Magdaline. I work with the State Department for Gender in the Ministry of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. It's one of the ministries in government. And that ministry is the one responsible for programs on gender-based violence, among other programs I'm going to read. So I take this opportunity to most sincerely thank the CEO, Inspire Action Africa, fellow speakers, the participants. We feel privileged as a ministry to have participated in such an informative forum. I've also learned something, especially from the professor there, on issues of trauma. That psychology is very important. It's a very important aspect, especially on GBV, because it affects us all around. We have also met other experts like Madam, the first speaker. She has shown us the statistics on where we are, and statistics are available, not just for the general gender-based violence, but also for femicide, which is a recent happening. So as we get there, I'm happy to note that this program has happened just during the period when we've just ended the 16 days of activism. Gender-based violence is a UN commemorated campaign that begins every 25th of November to 10th of December. At least I can see people are knowledgeable here. How many participated in this year's 16 days? May I see by a show of hands? That is great. At least I'm not speaking to people who have no idea about what GBV. We all know we've just come from that season. And during this year's campaign, the theme was every 11 minutes, a woman is killed. Can you imagine? Every 11 minutes. So it means for the period we've been here this afternoon, how many women have died? How many women have died since we began? If it's every 11 minutes, we've been here for about 2 hours now. Can we calculate? It means about half of this room ought to be dead by now, isn't it? Yeah, which is very sad. So there is a clarion call to unite, to end gender-based violence. So it's not just for the women. It's a war that should be taken up by both men and women. So just like my earlier speaker spoke, GBV affects both men and women, boys and girls. But there is a disproportionately women and girls. That means statistically, women and girls are the most affected. And you can see it's because of their gender, and there are many factors that cause that, which begins from our sociocultural backgrounds. There are so many factors. It is entrenched in culture. It is the way we have been brought up. It is the environments we live in. It is what is in the mind. So there's a lot of linkage on the topic on psychology. So my presentation is now here. And mine, I didn't prepare it in a PowerPoint because of some commitments. It's like talking notes. So already I've acknowledged those who are here. Our host, Madam Catherine. So we can start here. Just scroll it down. So I've already mentioned that we are here, and it's our delight as a State Department to be part of this sensitization forum, which is one of the interventions by partners on prevention and response. Inspire in Action is one of our partners, because in government, we cannot do it alone. We have to bring everybody on board, including the young people. So as per the theme of this program is Together for Change, let us end gender-based violence. So I already mentioned that the 2024 theme for the 16 days was every 11 minutes, one woman is killed. So we need to unite and end gender-based violence. It also coincides, just go up. It coincides with the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. How many of us have heard about the Beijing Platform? Beijing Platform of Action is actually a blueprint where issues of gender equality began back in 1985 and then 1995. So during that period, I think there was a lot of fun about it. You remember, most of you are not born, I suppose. But those who went to Beijing, people made a lot of fun. I'm sure, Professor, you may have an idea what they said about the women who went there, isn't it? There was so much negativity. But as a result of the Beijing platform, there was a lot of way forwards on how to empower women to attain gender equality. Some of it there are several thematic areas, actually 12. One of them, women and poverty, women and education and training. Yeah? The girl child was also there. And there was women and gender-based violence. Even women in armed conflict. It is a series of 12 thematic areas, including institutional strengthening. And that is why out of that Beijing, even the ministry exists today. That is dedicated to issues of women, gender equality and women's empowerment. So I won't repeat what gender-based violence is. It's already defined. So I will go to the current situation on femicide. We have the current situation on GBV. You know, femicide is just one of the GBV, gender-based violence. But now it has been isolated because of the form it has taken. There's a lot of it's really escalating and very scary. So for now, Kenya has been grappling with high rates of femicide, with statistics indicating a troubling trend. And you can see that data, reports from Africa Data Hub. Data is very important if we have to fight GBV, because numbers don't lie, isn't it? You could see earlier, 1 in 3 women has undergone gender-based violence. Here, specifically for femicide alone, 5 or 6 women were murdered between 2016 and 2023. And this is by intimate partners or ex-partners. It's just confirming what the earlier speaker said, that whoever kills you or perpetuates violence against you is not a stranger. It's someone very close. It can be family, it can be a friend. Further, the data on femicide shows there is a growing crisis, noting that over 97 cases of femicide were recorded this year alone. That is 2024. Isn't that alarming? 97 cases. So this is worrying. And you can see it's done by intimate partners. And a significant profession is intimate partners. The number tell a story that goes beyond statistics and represents lost lives. It's not just a number. It represents shattered families. I think if you listen to testimonies, even from the recent case for a daughter of a lady who is an MCA in Kiambu County, it was very devastating, the way she relates, how she lost her only daughter in a very brutal way. So it really leaves a lot of impact, and it has a lot of economic and impact. If the statistics also show that a case of GBV is very costly, not just medically, but even in terms of time spent trying to seek justice, time spent in going to hospital, and it means loss of opportunity. Now, going closer home to very specific, we have quite a number of reports here of cases that have been happening since 2019. You can see there was a lady who was a medical student in Moi University. She was called Ivy Muigai. Now we'll go slowly. She was hacked to death by her boyfriend. You remember that case? So when we speak about, I think this cohort is very good, because they are at that age set of courtship and what have you. You can imagine, hacked to death. I think they used a panga or it was an axe. It is very inhuman. 2020, we had the case of Sharon Otieno. You know, she was a victim of, and how it went. I may not mention the perpetrator, but how did it go? We have, in 2021, this lady was an athlete, Agnes Tirop. It's affecting quite a number of athletes, even the recent one. 2024, again, we had Sheila Wangeshi. Her body was found in a river, Machakos, dead. We have Rebecca, the most recent. She's also an athlete, an Olympic marathoner. We are losing very resourceful people who can bring a lot of pride to our country. And it was the boyfriend, her former boyfriend. You can see others, they are known. There is also the case of Esli. You remember? Three women belonging to one family. And the case was found. There is Yvonne Jirangwa. You can see this is a Catholic nun. There was Seth Nyakio. That is the Nderi case. We have Kwamboka. He's a student at the University of Nairobi. So it's affecting us very close. But now she was found in a thicket. But now if you follow up, maybe the suspects are people who are very close to her. We have Lillian, who was found dead, killed by a boyfriend. There is a very worrying trend. So most of these cases have been killed by individuals known to the victims. So femicide has a lot of effects. So as I had mentioned earlier, It has psychological. Psychologically, it generates fear. Fear, trauma, mental health among women and even the families. And I think, Professor, you've mentioned that very clearly, that it does away. Anytime, even if you are a survivor, because some of us may be survivors, we may not have told anyone, but anytime that memory relapses and you cannot live a normal life. Economically, it's very disruptive, seeking justice, seeking medical care, and it affects productivity. Socially, it can also affect our social relations, because you know that family, they are the ones who killed my child. Even among family members, you can see the people who molest children are caregivers, are uncles, are people who are very close. So mistrust is lost, and in that case, there is no cohesion at the family level. What have we done? So when we were invited here, CEO Catherine was very specific that we speak about what government has done, interventions and programs. So government has done a lot, but it can't do a lot without collaborating with all partners, and that is why we are here today, to collaborate. So we acknowledge that femicide is and GBV is a gross violation of individual rights. So if we go, I just want to go systematically that what does government do? And when I talk about government, it's not just the Ministry of Gender. There are components of GBV in health, components of GBV in security sector. So all of us have a stake in government. They have a role to play, and that's why we work collaboratively with health, the police service, Kenya Police Service, and many other. So what do we do? So it's the responsibility of government actually to ensure, first and foremost, to ensure the safety and security of all citizens and protect citizens' right to be free from violence. And this is entrenched in the Constitution of Kenya. If you read the Bill of Rights, it is very comprehensive. But to touch on a few areas, if you read like Article 29, it talks about no one should be subjected to violence. Should be free. Everyone should be free from in space. So actually, the Constitution of Kenya is very clear on that, on protecting the rights. So as a ministry, our functions are entrenched on what we call the executive orders. From time to time, government release what we call executive order. So for now, executive number 2 of 2023 gave the mandate the State Department to undertake various programs, including that of programs on gender-based violence, and even for putting up shelters, management of shelters. We may not put them up, but even partners who have shelters, we work very closely with them. So policy and programs on gender-based violence, among other. And this, what we are doing as a country, if you read our constitution, violence against women, yes. So many others, even our own. We have the Maputo Protocol back in Africa, and many others. We are also promoting what we call affirmative action policy and equity. So we have put in place a number of strategies as interventions. So one is we have put in place what we call institutional policy and legal frameworks and programs. So going down to institutional, the ministry is one of them. At least the fact that the government saw it good to have a ministry responsible for issues of gender-based violence is a plus in itself. And you can see some of the priorities of even men right now. We are talking about economic transformation agenda. There is issue of empowerment, gender equality. You remember there was a declaration even to end FGM by 2022. So government puts blueprints in place. So some of the institutional mechanism other than the ministry, we have one of our semi-autonomous agency called the Anti-FGM Board, which is dedicated to female genital mutilation. We also work, we don't work in isolation. We work through what we call national and county gender sector working groups. This brings together all actors, both state, non-state partners, county governments, who are working on the space, the gender space. And I believe such as you are in the right place today, because anyone who is doing work in gender, be it on gender-based violence, women economic empowerment, issues of women in leadership, issues of male engagement. I think when we interacted with the resource persons today, everybody was doing something. So you actually anchored on what we call gender sector working groups. We, under that gender sector working groups also, about 2 years ago, we introduced what we call male and inclusion. We realized that the war against gender-based violence cannot be won unless men are brought on board. Why? Men are custodians of culture. Men decide on so many things that affect women. They are also, statistically, it has been, statistics show that men are, they are affected, but minimal to men. They are the greatest perpetrators. So bringing them on board is important as champions and allies. We also have a special courts through the judiciary. That is not our history. That's why I said we are working together with all arms of government. So we have special courts that are dedicated to GBV. You can see some counties have already operationalized. There's one in Kisumu, Siaya, and they are coming up. So we really laud our courts for what they are doing, because it means you cannot treat issues of GBV the same way you'll treat any other crime. They need special courts where their issues can be expedited or given the privacy that it deserves. I think initially there were even family courts, issues of domestic violence and the like. We also have what we call intergovernmental consultative framework. You remember both governments, both levels of government, that is national and county, work in the spirit of what we call cooperation and consultation. So in as much as gender is not devolved, but the counties have an obligation to undertake gender program. And how does this happen? Before, it's okay, it's fine. So before, at the county level, they have something similar to strategic plans. They are called county integrated development plans. And that is what guides counties' actions for every 5 years. So through that framework, we sensitize the counties to ensure that their plans are engendered to take on board issues of gender, including gender-based violence, even putting in place safe homes. You remember, even land, the counties own most of the land. They have the resources. So if they are put in the plans, they should be able to operationalize those shelters at that level. Even the hospitals, we have what we call violence recovery centers, which are attached to hospitals. So it means it's supposed to work like the police, the polycare centers, where once you are in that hospital, you are given all the services, not just treatment. There is a police desk, There is someone from the courts. There is also a psychologist to give you psychosocial support. Legislative and policy frameworks, what have we done? We have quite a number of legal frameworks, the first one being our constitution. We also have the Sexual Offences Act of 2006. We have the Prevention Against Domestic Violence Act of 2015. And in 2020, out of that act, the PDV Act, rules, there's what we call rules. They developed rules through the committee. And as a ministry, we are going around the communities to enlighten them about the provisions, because now domestic violence, it's a form of gender-based violence, but you know, people have been taking it like normal. If families fight, or the husband beats the wife, they didn't know where to go. But through PDV Act and those rules, they are now empowered on whom even to report to. You can report to the neighbor, you can report to the chief, you can report to a social worker to take up that case as criminal. We have the penal code, that is, sorry. So if you read the penal code, it has section, it has introduced, or it puts deterrent measures on perpetrators on how many years can even be jailed. And then we have a number of policies. The first one, or key among these, is the National Policy on Prevention and Response to GBV, which is under the ministry. The first one was in 2014, and currently we are reviewing. So as we review this policy, we've ensured emerging aspects like femicide and technology-facilitated gender-based violence are part of that policy. Even shelters were not there, but we need GBV shelters, protection centers, rescue centers to support survivors of GBV. We have what we call multi-agency partnership. Recently, you heard of the statement where our peers, the police service, members of parliament came together to declare femicide an alarming issue. And even as we saw, there was also a forum convened by His Excellency, the Deputy President, because this has become, it has taken a very high level in government. So on how we can together fight against femicide. So as I had mentioned earlier, we are not working in isolation. Our frameworks, legal and even prevention measures are anchored on international instruments. So you can move it, you can move on. Resource allocation also. Without resources, we cannot go far. So I believe even in this forum, resources is not just money, even empowering all of us through Inspire Action is a resource in itself. So the people, if you go and reach out to a few people, you will make a great impact. And everybody doing their way, a small way, will be able to reach so many people. Programmatic interventions, we have a number of programs. One is training of duty bearers and communities on GBV prevention. When we talk of duty bearers, whenever we go to the communities at the county level, we target key organizations of government and even communities, CSOs. So duty bearers in this case is the judiciary, the police service, Ministry of Health, Interior, the chiefs. They are very critical. And during that training, it is to ensure them, to prepare them to enforce the law, because as a ministry, we cannot enforce the law. It is them who should enforce the law. So you sensitize them to know the legal frameworks, what does it provide, what actions to take. Media is very important. Without the media, we cannot do much, and I'm happy you are here, because after today's engagement, I'm sure you'll reach out, the information will reach out, and it's not just mainstream media. the social media, I learned that many a times when I use WhatsApp, my children laugh at me. They say they didn't see because they are on Instagram. They are on which ones? Instagram and which ones? Eh?
There's Twitter.
Yeah?
Twitter.
Twitter. Yeah, at least Twitter. Nangina. So many, eh? All those forums, the social media, we need to post and reach out to people who have advanced in technology. So technology through the media is very important. Male engagement, we cannot do without the men being brought on. And I'm happy today, Madam CEO, you did not just invite ladies, because there's a misconception that issues gender is just women. And whenever we advocate and do advocacy, the majority are women and girls. Eh? So men, we need more of you to come to this space. And I already see some champions in our midst. Congratulations. Can we clap for them? Yeah. Community dialogues, you go and do what we call intergenerational dialogues. Eh? You bring the people who are custodians of culture, the elderly men, the young men, the young women, the older women, so that you dissect and see what is it in our culture that promotes GBV and femicide, and they are able to provide own solutions at that level. Also, elders' declaration, this has been happening, especially in the fight against FGM. So those counties, 22 hotspots, those are counties who are still practicing GM. And them to engage the elders because they are getting cultures. We have polycare. These are specialized centers under the police service. It's a one-stop unit where you go to the police and you get a medic, you get from Nderi, you get a. So it's a one-stop shop. Then GBV reporting desk is now in every county or in each police station. I talked about gender-based, working closely with CSOs, and this is what we are doing today. And then we have special programs on women economic empowerment. Government as women economic empowerment programs. I don't know if we have heard about Women Enterprise Fund. It's targeting not just the elder women, it's also for girls, young women, 18 years and above. It has no restriction, and it's giving interest-free loans for women and girls to start entrepreneurship. They also give training. So take an interest and visit their websites for more. It's very vibrant now. Women Enterprise Fund, all you need is to just check. We have the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. This is not a loan, it's a grant. And this money is given through the offices of the women representatives in all the 47 counties. So here in Nairobi, we have the office of the Women Rep Honorable Pasaris, but they have offices. So either through the Ministry of Interior or visit their offices. We have Wezo Fund, we have Youth Enterprise Development Fund. So don't just sit back and say the government is not supporting the youth. Take a step to know what these affirmative funds can offer for you. Wezo Fund. And then we have a number of programs also for the girl child. You've heard about the sanitary towels program targeting schools. For now, it's public schools. Primary, it's only in primary for now because of inadequate resources. So primary, public secondary schools, I think we are not yet there. But public primary and special units. I think my sister here said she's working with children with autism, but it has to be a public school for now because of resources. So we are also to complement the government by going out of their way to support these girls. We also have what we call Dignity Kids, which is supported by partners for survivors of GBV. It's very important to have evidence-based interventions. So in this case, government is keen on collection of data, not just through KNBS, that is Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, but also through research in the university. So through research and data collection is when we can know where we are as a country, because it will inform policy and interventions on GBV and femicide. So I think the next one I may not repeat, it's just the need for collaboration for all of us. So with those many, many long presentations, allow me to stop there.
Tumpigi coffee tena tafadhali. Okay, we're going to our final session. Very quickly, there's going to be a barcode, a code posted on the screens. I need you to take a screenshot of it. I need you to hey, scan it. Woo! Because then we'll ask you to comment or send your comments on our discussion today, okay? So I'm going to ask 3 people to come and take a seat on stage. Dr. Sylvia Mochabo, come join us. She's a founder and CEO, AndySpeaks for Special Needs Persons Africa. Let me ask Grace Wanene. Grace? Sit. And also, do you not do it there? You're good. We're open for. So last, because this man is important. Yeah. And so here's where I want us to just ask questions. Like I said, it's an open forum. Fungweni roho. Information is key, as Kinyanjui has said. And I'll insist on this. It is never anyone's fault, whatever happens to you. But the power of knowledge makes sure that you're able to avoid or protect yourself. Not avoid, protect yourself from such situations. Soon most of you will become parents. So parenting is not a thing. It's not a thing you become and move on. It's an intentional, it's a present, lifelong experience. Pretty exciting if you ask me. But you also, there's no thing, but you can learn in terms of being intentional. And what does that mean, okay? So let me start with you, Dr. Mochabo, in terms of, because we didn't speak about disability, autism, and gender-based violence. Can you touch on that for a bit, and how and what are the statistics showing us in terms of that? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Dr. Sylvia Mochabo. I'm the founder of AndySpeaks. I'm also a parent of 3, 18, 14, and 12. And of the 3, 2 of my children are on the autism spectrum with epilepsy and other intellectual challenges. And I'm neurodivergent myself, though high functioning. So gender-based violence is very, very highly affecting, especially women. So first, you're a woman, you're already being looked as less, and with a disability that makes you even more prone to GBV. I'll touch on the element of FGM and how it contributes in the 2 sides of it. So if you look at areas that are pastoralists, because of culture and the things we talked about, there is a very high prevalence of children with cerebral palsy. And why is that? CP is one of the high contributing factors is during birth and during the first 5 years. And we find that because of FGM, the women, after being cut and then they are stitched, and the effect of FGM during the process of, you find that it affects now when they're giving birth because you're smaller. And now you're being forced to, even in that time, we were up in Garissa earlier doing a ride for autism to just raise awareness, and to our shock it was more cerebral palsy children than autistic children that were there. And the more contributing factor was the women forced to give birth naturally. So you've already been being forced to give birth naturally, and you're not allowed to take part in of having an having CS. It's the man who decides and the family. So you see how it is just one thing compounding to another. So that increases also the number of children with disabilities that are being seen. So during the actual week, we were having a conversation at the British High Commission, and one of the ladies was giving us her life experience. And she said that the women, the elder women, it was during the dark in the night when they were taken out into the forest for them to be cut. So you can imagine you're a small young girl being held by elderly women on the ground by force, and this is being done. So she acquired her physical disability from the trauma of the process. You're fighting in the dark, and then she broke her hip. So of course now she's not walking properly. So you can imagine a child who's blind out in the forest, and remember you're left there, no treatment, no bleeding, and you're just left to like naturally heal. So a blind person being done for this, and these are the people you're trusting. This is your relatives, the inner circle, the elderly women you're looking up to. Zero explanation, just because it is said that you have to do it. So these are some of the things that we need to speak up against. If it is, like we were talking earlier as facilitators, when we were saying how best do we understand the whys behind it. And some of the works that are being done up there is calling the barazas, understanding, having the conversation with men. And there was a gentleman in the forum who said, actually, the more we had conversations with the men, the more the numbers are going down. And you've seen it's coming up from coming down from the 30% to 15%, the current 50%. And the key importance of this is education is power. Why are we doing it? What are the side effects? Because you see, when your wife is suffering, your child is suffering, and you cannot speak up just because society says so. So there is a lot of correlation in that, and we've seen a lot of physical abuse in our spaces as women. So I'll give an example of the caregivers who have children with disability. One of the first things you're told, it is your fault. Yeah? So we've talked about the different forms of violence. It is your fault, it is in your family. The blame squarely falls on the woman already. And you find that this breeds something in you. You start blaming yourself. You're going through depression. You're trying to take care of this child who's brought you all this misery. Your husband leaves, you're now alone. Yet this child requires a lot from you. Then that brings trauma. We've heard about the mental health element of it. So you see, it's both directly and indirectly affecting your life. I know personally, one of the highest things that I was told when my children were young was, no man is ever going to accept you. First, because you have boys, because they're children with disabilities. Right? So those are emotional things that will make you doubt yourself, not believe in yourself, and live with this. And one of the things that I personally experienced was that anger. There is that anger that you develop and wonder, like, why did this happen to me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Why? Because it brings you down to a level, and the community also. You go to church, everyone is looking at you. Everyone is, just speaking in harsh tones. Then you extract yourself from the community. Is it helping? It doesn't. And these are the same children who are supposed to be growing in this community. Yeah? And even they are being abused by other children subconsciously. Yeah? A child goes to play, and that child is now being alienated. Because one of the days my child wanted to go on a trampoline, and the other children came out. What do you do? Whose fault is it?
Let me ask you, Dr. And by the open session, okay? You have a question? Oh, no? Okay, you will. Okay, don't worry. Anyone have a question, let me know. I'll lose some point in terms of running around. Yeah? Later, okay. Let me ask though. Okay. And by the way, you notice she's very passionate about autism. She ensured that a young person called Mogo. John, yes. Can't remember the second name because we interviewed him on a radio show. Probably the first autistic lawyer we have in the country.
Yes, he just graduated, yes.
Can you imagine? So congratulations. To pick him a coffee for that, yes. That's why. But bring this closer to home in terms of, and here's a danger of talking about certain facets of society. Here ni wow, it happens to them. Yeah. Bring it closer to us in terms of, and especially FGM or GBV for that matter, closer to home in terms of, in this modern society, Nairobi, in urban scenarios, does it happen? Are people still forced to go through FGM in this modern setting?
Yes, I'm Kisi by tribe. And I remember when I was in class 8, my mom told me, let's take a walk. And she was like, and my grandmother was around, and she's like, oh, you know, Grandma says it's about time. And you're like, about time for what? And she's like, yeah, you need to go through FGM. And because I had heard about it in school, and I was like, I'm not doing that, you know? So it is being practiced. And it is about us parents, like you said, we have key responsibility in this. These are cultural. Do you take it up, down to our children, or do we end it? So we hold the key and the mantle to be the change maker. You know, the way we talk of, oh, generational curses, there is more to it than that. The things we teach our children, and even how you explain some of these things. Let me just touch on now the femicide side of things. Needs based now. In my podcast, I was having a conversation with one of the teachers, and they asked her the question, why did you become a teacher for special needs education? And she said, because of my cousin. And what happened? She was autistic. That means, you see, autistics and some of the children with intellectual disabilities can be non-speaking. And they had worked so hard for this girl to be very independent. And so she was staying with the grandmother because the parents left. And the grandmother, they had a routine. She stays at home, she takes care of herself, she goes to the shamba. And our community, this day and age community, a young man realized that this girl is always alone from this time to this time. What does a young man do? Go home, rape the girl, and leaves. This girl, who was very independent because of the mental trauma, now becomes very dependent, afraid, can never be left alone. That means grandma cannot go out. And when they went to the police station, and that is why, and my organization, we trained the police on how to handle such cases. When they went to the police to report, they were told she got her case thrown out. This girl eventually died out of trauma. So we lose a life because of the lack of responsibility and lack of considerations that we have in our system. So the systemic barriers in this day and age are still failing us as caregivers and also as parents of children with disabilities, and them themselves also.
Thank you so much. Marginalized communities. Grace, tell us, either you lived it or you know people who have. Tell us about that. And again, because I want us to realize that it's not happening to them. So Grace is from marginalized communities. So you nishida yao, minaishi nai, Nairobi. So talk experience and how do we to the urban setting.
Thank you, Jimmy. Hello, everyone.
So the people watching us, and thank you for watching us live online. Can I ask you to switch? So you, oh, so she's taller. Okay, sit. All right, go.
Yeah, I'm an equity queen, so anyway, thank you so much, Jimmy. Hi, everyone. Mko salama. So my name is Wanene Grace, and I'm from Nanyuki. We actually came this morning with my partner. This is where I live. I'm the founder of a community-based organization, Drawing Dreams Initiative, and we work in Laikipia, drawing, like my T-shirt. Kuchora ndoto, Drawing Dreams, yeah, Drawing Dreams Initiative, and yeah, we work in Asal counties, the northern Kenya, but also Amboseli and Kajiado. My life mission and purpose got me there by chance. I did a lot of management, diploma, degree, and all that, but when I got into pageantry around 17-ish, which I taught myself through YouTube, by the way. Yeah, tulikuwa tunaenda cyber. So yeah, so I began interacting with communities that I had been watching on TV, majorly on human-wildlife conflicts. And I was like, what is this human-wildlife conflicts, and what is happening between elephants, lions, and humans? So I'm also a poet. I do a lot of poetry. So I did a kids book called Let's Go Wild. It's poetry and then like comic, like coloring and all that. So that was a tool for me to go qua ground to teach the boys and girls about human-wildlife coexistence. So at this point, I'd gotten to the Miss Earth pageant, which took me to Asia, represented my beautiful country, got some funding to fund the project, and set foot on human-wildlife coexistence. So every time we'd get into classes, there was a boy or girl following myself and my siblings, asking, oh, I'm bullied because my voice is not bass yet. What do I do about something that I noticed in my panties? Is it a discharge? Is it periods? What's really happening to me? And we got to a point where we were sure that the boys and girls in the classrooms did not know so much about their transitioning from puberty to adulthood or childhood to puberty. And we came together and decided to circle back to what we were doing. At this point, COVID had hit in 2020, and in March, schools were closing. So we were like, okay, so do we just chill or what do we do? My very brilliant and creative team, Dr. mentioned earlier, were like, you know what, let's do a campaign. We did a campaign called Periods Don't Pause for Pandemics. That's a hashtag K on Instagram. And we navigated 28 communities in the Northern Circuit during the pandemic. And this was a light bulb moment for us. We got into bombers and realized that, kumbe, the problem with puberty, it's not only for the boys and girls to handle, but pia kuna a lot of generational gap. If your mom gave birth to you and left you under the care of your grandparent who did not go to school, who does not understand how to transform this message to you, I live to hustle. Like most of our moms who hustle Rumuruti, Timao, in those horticultural farms. So kumbe these boys and girls wanalelewa na their grandparents in their homes. So during this transition time, there's a huge gap on how the knowledge is being disseminated to the boys and girls. Remember that teachers in schools, bado they are shy. They do not know how to educate the boys and girls about these issues. What was even worse was the number of girls having children or children having children in the same bombers. So you could not see them in the villages. They were like kept uko. Like you stay in the homesteads for months, give birth, no natokea tu. So nobody knows whom mtoto ni wa nani. And we're like, okay, so what do we do? And we got, remember the boys and girls who I used to teach, bado wanaendelea ku transition, and we started teaching them and training them with no funding at all. Like we'd go get the chief, we mobilize people to now teach how to teach their fellow communities. We'd get to places where we'd get Pokot translators, uko Olmoran, Pali, you hear a lot of war in the news, bandits. We'd get like Pokot youth to come and help us translate. So as we proceeded, we began having a cohort of community champions, from the chiefs, from the youth, from the grandmas who, like she talked about, FGM, were some of the perpetrators on that, and getting to understand how do we, with this gap here, reproductive health, what now we have modern terms on, period poverty, reproductive health, gender-based violence. And there is where we got ourselves working. So DDI, or Drawing Dreams Initiative, is mostly known from that period, but that's how our work began. And the beauty about it is co-creating solutions with the community. So as far as 2023, we had like 1,700 and something birds in Rumuruti, a dispensary in Rumuruti, and 612 of those were teenagers. You see teen, you kusema 11, 12. So picture yourself at around 11, 12. What were you doing? Yeah? So now you're a mother of a child whose father you most likely do not know about, and your parents are not able to even take you to school. So hawezi kulea na umeleta mtoto mwingine. So the sad part is most of the birds, consented birds, most of them are from peers, but you might think they're older guys, but they're actually peers. So they coerce each other from pesa ndogondogo, 100 bob beer pads. Others are flour, the farmers of tomatoes, uko ivo. Uko. If this thing was live, I know, but we have really, we have dealt with them proper with our previous government. Like imagine you're a hotel manager, pale kwa reception, and a young girl comes to book a key, your room. You're not even asking for an ID. You're not asking for iki ni nini, and you give them the key, and then there's another guy who comes now, the guy. Alafu analipa and unamwambia room, anenda kwa room. So from the business people to the boda guys, like we did a lot of activation and advocacy around what is gender equity, what is gender-based, and how do we cap this. So in short, I'm trying to say that each one of us has a role to play. And if you see something happening on the side, or if you read something on the news or on our socials, mostly the gossip things on Instagram. Just try to take a moment and sit back and reflect. How is this possible? What could have been the cause of this? And in our spaces, for those who are gifted with resources, going out to the communities, let us create a culture of going down and understanding what is happening so that we can co-create solutions with them so that zinakuwa sustainable. Isikue, wale wasi walikuja na Prado wakaacha pads 1,000 alafu wakarudi Nairobi. You know, let us co-create solutions with our communities. Let us work together and put our energies pamoja, and we are going to bring the numbers down.
She hasn't left. She's going to be. Prof, I need you to come in here. And in this regard, she's mentioned there's a line. There's a line. There's culture. There's societal norms. She spoke about generational. You have to, because it is time. I don't care whether you went to University of Nairobi or where you are. Sijali kama unakaa Nairobi. It is cultural. You have to go through it. How do we unpack that? How do we come out of it? And also, while you're answering that, and you've taught us this, there has to be a beginning. What are their pros and cons? And I would like the two to discuss that, to tell us about that later. What are the pros and cons of cultural norms? And can we learn? Can we pick what was good and throw away what is bad? Is that where we're supposed to come from, or how do we unpack this, Prof?
Exactly where you've talked about. Culture, every culture is dynamic. Culture changes. So how do you start unpacking? But thank you very much. Most of you experience something we call post-traumatic growth. PTG is people becoming post-traumatic growth is using your traumatic experiences, process them, and then you actually become better than you were before the trauma. We have, right now I don't talk too much about trauma. I teach people how to convert their pain into resources which they can use for themselves. And you know what? If you experience post-traumatic growth, you become better than you were before the trauma. Now, in culture, and we've done quite a bit of work in this continent about helping people deprogram harmful cultural and traditional skills, because cutting or circumcising a woman is a skill. And there were people who are trained to do that. And mostly are women, at least in the culture I came from. The circumciser of our village was a woman. I'll not tell you the village. May the good Lord bless her soul. Because it's a skill. So how do you now cut the cycle of her passing that skill to another person? You deprogram the mind. And there are very many techniques now. And now when you deprogram the mind, you need to leave this person with another skill or another mindset. When people talk about healing, it's give people an alternative. Exactly. Because education is very important. But I teach in the university and I tell my students, most of the education we give you is academic. They go out there. There are people who are highly educated. She gave us, Madame gave us some amazing data. A lady circumcising herself for her to gain the dignity to be able to feed her son. Because culture does not allow you. So you deprogram and replace that culture with something that is useful now. And I can give you one method. It is called NLP. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. I explain. You know the way you are sitting, right now? If I needed to deprogram you, because you are saying yes, I'm using language. That language goes into your neurons. That's why it's neuro. And it changes some of the dysfunction in your brain. And now it moves you. Because culture is transmitted through language, through symbols, through singing. Every culture had a way. You interrupt with a way in which this person is changing the mental maps. And now give people a new culture to relate to the new day to day. So I really tell people, go down to the culture, find out why they were doing the things they were doing. They were not crazy. And it sustained them. Is it working now? No. Do you have an alternative? Train them. Development facilities. I like the way government is working. You have options. And you have told people, go out and do it. But train them with the skill.
There's a question here, Prof.
Thank you.
Your name, where you from?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Washira. I am from the Institute of Public Finance. One question for... Can I be heard? Okay. You as well as Ms. Kipkenei could answer this for me. You've already talked about how your behavior can be affected not only by your culture, and now that culture can make you become, make your cognitive ability now to make you start doing things that are not normally depicted as moral or even right. Now, from this side, we are talking about the victims, but there is this thing that they call restorative justice. You'd mentioned it earlier, although in passing, in around 2017, 2018, Uhuru tried to do the restorative justice fund, but it was on historical injustices when it came to land. Now, when it comes into this particular instance, we have people who are incarcerated in the prisons. We have people in our communities, perhaps doing unmentionable things to persons who are young. But it's not necessarily because they want to, it's because of the culture that entered into their head. Their neurons now become so meshed together, they believe that it's right. How can we ensure that there's restorative justice for persons in the communities, and then that there's restorative justice for these people who have been incarcerated, to make them competent enough to come back to society, to reintegrate them so that they don't do the same things as of now? I'm saying Ms. Kipkenei should assist me in answering this because I am assuming your department works closely with the State Department of Correctional Services. So perhaps you could answer that.
Okay, thank you, Washira. I think I didn't get it in relation to when you talk about restorative justice. Huh? Is it in terms of what is the context? Let me understand the context.
When we talk about restorative justice, we are simply talking about someone has incarcerated in prison for 8. Now we want them to be trained to become competent enough to come back into the society, to be reintegrated into the society in such a manner that they we deal with budget. They become champions on matters of GBV. State Department on Gender Work Services assist the victim, perpetrator, not to do it again.
Thank you so much. I think I get it now. It's about reintegration for a perpetrator who committed a crime, a sexual offense crime, and is back to society. I would say that we are not directly working with correction, but while they are in prison, there is a lot of rehabilitation. And I think you'll bear me witness is in terms of psychological rehabilitation, even to get a skill. And I think the prison department or correctional services has changed tact now. When they release the person back to society, there is a program for integration. You are not just, because you know when you go back there, society is not comfortable with you. They still remember what you did. But now there is a slow transition in terms of reintegrating, because the person has served the full term, and depending on the gravity of that case. So I would say we do not, such a person, the far we can is to see how to empower them to support the skills they have gained. For example, you can see they are trained on some trade, if it's a man. Some even you can see they are even going to school now. The other day we were told there is a lawyer who has graduated. So they don't come back to out of prison or correctional service empty-handed. They come with a skill and with a renewed mind. So there is a total rehabilitation of the mind and the person, and even equipping them with skills through that state department for correctional services. That's what I can say. But maybe Professor here can also add something.
You're perfectly right. I think the correctional services in this country have changed. Congrats to them. Oh, you can, eh? And one thing that they have incorporated, and we've trained quite a number of people, you will not be able to achieve restoration justice before you process what we call perpetrator trauma. People who perpetrate crime suffer as much as people who they victimized. Because as you say, it was not their fault. Something happened. Then for some reason, they are not able to deal with that pain. And therefore, it is very important what they are doing now to try and incorporate trauma processing so that you can delete what you did as a dysfunctional human being. You understand the reason. Then you are reintegrated to society when you are now more functional. And we saw this in Rwanda where we had to work with the perpetrators of genocide, people who killed their own children. How do you go back to society? And you know what? When you do the process, some of them adopted children of the people they killed because their parents are not there. So it is so important to integrate and have an integrated process. We just don't punish. Wanatoka huko wakiwa worse than before. And I'm saying there is hope now that the people have enough knowledge to be able to help them. Thank you.
It's not necessarily restorative justice, but even those who do not have who have not committed severe problems, they are taken back to society through the probation way, where they work for the community and they work through the leadership in the community to be accepted back. Because acceptance is what is important. Because for a long time, if you've killed, you have raped, people will still view you very suspiciously. So that's what I can say.
Good afternoon. Saizi ni afternoon ama ni jioni? Hivyo venye iko. So for me, bado niko na swali kwake. Yeah, so you've been you projected about statistics of femicide. So for me, as I just wanted to ask in your office, like, what actions are you guys taking? Because I can remember juzi too when we were on the streets, me hata nilirushiwa tear gas. So like like me, I would like to see difference. Sitaka tu kukuwa naona tu statistics ati watu wanawake fulani namba ya wanawake wameuliwa, and yet I don't see anything that the government is doing. Sioni kama wamesema kuko na huyu na huyu na huyu na huyu walishikwa, and you know ni need for what they did. Because for now we don't even know who is killing, you walk outside and you're so afraid of your life. So I really would love to know in your office, like, what actions and what policies are there to just force the legislative the departments that are supposed to be taking these things seriously. What are they doing?
Almost on the same, since it's still to Madam Kipkenei. My name is Katrina Nyambura. I am a disability advocate. I run a briefcase organization called Katrina Foundation. But today I'm here in the capacity of the United Disabled Persons of Kenya. I want to know, we came out for the End Femicide Walk. Si maandamano, honestly. Why were we tear gassed? You know? My friend here, even fainted, and a lot had to be done to resuscitate her and all that by the time she could get home. Like, we would like to know, is it that the government is not taking this seriously? And if they are, then they should show us what actions are being taken against maybe those police that started this violence, because they are the ones who started the violence. We were there just a peaceful walk, a peaceful protest to say, hey, please stop killing women anymore. We are tired of losing our sisters. We are afraid for our lives. And then all of a sudden, exactly what is happening, you're coming in the name of government with your uniforms to perpetrate more violence against us. So is there something being done to those that did this?
I can respond. Huh?
Okay.
That one is
One more thing. I want to add something. Okay, I will speak in Swahili. That day, nilinusa kaburini. There's one police officer keep telling us, songeni, mutajionea. Na si tukamwambia, we want kujionea, that thing you are telling us, kujionea. Na tulijionea. Imagine alituambia tadili na sisi, at even you person disability, munakaa hapa. Tukaambia, we are human beings, na tuko right kujitete. Atuko safe. Kama police officer anaweza tuambia mtajionea, then ana step ahead kama pale tear gas nikastukia zimenisurround nne na I'm asthmatic. Na niliambia police officer atugombani, tuko peacefully demonstrated because wanawake ndio wanawawa na anatuchinja huyo. Alituambia aendeleni kukanda, onyesha matope, nenye alituonyesha matope. Mimi nilibebwa kubeba. So tunataka kujua, madam, kama kuna vile tunaweza saidika, not only person with disability, but women. Hatuwezi demonstrate peacefully. Last year tuli demonstrate peacefully. This year what's happened? Kwani tunachinjwa bado tukienda kutetea kitu tunatupitia. By the way, my name is Helena Chieng. Na hiyo report yangu nataka ifikie Mr. William Samoei Ruto. Yeah, sina aibu. Hata kipenda tumani mimi nichinjwe. By the way, iliniuma. Kama yeye ndio president, polisi wako chini yake. Kwa nini hawezi ambia polisi wa protect wanawake waandamane peaceful demonstration? Mpaka nikajiuliza, ai.
okay. Thank you, Catherine, Celestine, and Selena, and the third speaker. I think I didn't get who it was. And those are very valid concerns and questions. So I think right from my presentation on what is the government doing, the government is doing something. I think you follow through my presentation. And the most critical is the recent multi-agency. I'm sure you watched. And the multi-agency partnership brings on board everyone, because, you know, we have the laws in place. What lacks is maybe inadequate enforcement or different levels of enforcement, and everybody has a role to play along the value chain of government. We have where to, we have the health issues, we have psychosocial. So what the government, I want to assure you, the government's commitment that we are committed to ending or addressing femicide in all, and GBV in all its forms. And that's why there are a number of interventions that are in place. So the happening on 10th of, it was 10th of December. It was unfortunate. I may not tell the circumstances, but then I don't think, I may not really want to, I may not comment much about that, because like all of us, we saw it, and the circumstances under which the tear gas happened, I may not testify, but the wananchi were free to express themselves, because that the day of human rights, it was human rights, and issues of femicide was at very high level. In fact, it was a few days when Even the president pronounced himself. The government cannot contradict itself by talking on the floor of parliament, allocating resources, and perpetuating it at the same time. So selling, if there's a place you can be heard, it's fine. But I want to assure every participant here and even the resource persons here that government is serious and there's so much happening towards addressing that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I also do know, I don't think it was also in the, yeah, I know you'll respond, Catherine, that there's
today, by the way,
yes,
there's something happening to strategize.
Yes.
Led by none other than delegated authority of the president to the deputy president at his residence. So keep watching this space. Something is happening in a big way. It's not just about jerky response, or we want sustained response to femicide through an integrated, an all-round approach, legislative, programmatic, support, and in any way. So that's the much I can say, but I'm sorry about that.
There's a report that should be coming out next week. What the Deputy Director was talking about, under the directive of the President, being led by the former Interior Minister, who's now the Deputy President, have instructed IPOA to do a very thorough investigation on the events that happened during the Human Rights Day celebration. I think the President has given him 2 or 3 weeks, and when that report comes, then of course we shall see what happens. Just to protect Madam Magdaline in terms of that. Catherine, you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to add on to that, what Jimmy is saying. There was a report yesterday that the Nairobi Central OCPD and the OCS were transferred over that issue. So just to let you know, and of course, the government is doing something, and that is also why we are also collaborating with them. And it was there yesterday, yesterday's news. Yes. Over the mishandling.
Hold on, guys. Okay. And I do. No. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be sorry. No. It's okay. Like I said, apart from the transfers, and we never understand what police procedures are. However, the most important is a report that we're expecting to come out, I think, in a couple of weeks or so. That's the determinant. And that's what we're going to, because prior to him becoming the Deputy President, these are the issues that the current Deputy President was working on in terms of transparency and issues, negative issues pertaining to the police department. There has been argument between IPOA and police service, and that's what they were trying to sort out, and that's what this report will do. So I urge you, and this is very important in terms of the questions you've asked. Let's wait for that report to come out and then begin to interrogate it from that. I like a society that interrogates things, asks questions and powerful questions from a point of information. Okay?
Could I just one?
Yes,
one
and you
thing?
have 5 minutes before we send guys home.
I'll take 2.
Okay.
I'm so sorry about what happened. You are entitled to a session to process. Give that to you for free. Because it's very important what she's talking about. Because the material goes into her system and the anger is palpable. If it's not processed, the police guy is gone. So you need to take care of yourself and your own experiences. I work with Psychosocial Support Center. We provide services. Sometimes we do pro bono. Now, secondly, most of our law enforcement officers might be experienced or they have experienced severe traumatic experiences. I do not know, but it is very important for us to be able to help them to break the cycle of violence. Because if they have experience, you call police, come and collect a dead body here, they burn out. So wanakuona uko street, hajui ni kwamba is a legal thing or is not illegal, wetembea mbele utakula tear gas. We might be able to look at it differently. Perpetrator, trauma, process, make them a little more functional. But when it happens, process it. Okay? Thank you.
All right. Yes. Well done. So, Catherine, you wanna take us home with this one? You have like 5 minutes, really. Thanks.
So you want me to close now?
Yes.
Okay, great, yeah. So basically, thank you very much, everybody. I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Inspire Action Africa to thank each and every one of you, our partners at the Ministry of Gender. I know you got some tough questions, but that's why we are here to also work together and ensure that we meet the needs of everyone. We want to thank Dr. Sylvia, Wanene. We want to also thank our professor here, Mr. Lincoln Kinyanjui, and our other speakers. But most of all, we want to thank each and every one of you for participating, for attending. You can see we have so many more questions, but I think this is just the beginning. We are planning to have more sessions like this next year. We would like to hear from you. We have this code. If you could just, fill in your feedback. What more would you like to hear? Let us collaborate. That's the only way we can fight femicide and GBV. And of course, if you have any, you'd like some psychosocial support, Mr. Kinyanjui has explained that you can also reach out. And also to thank our host here, Senses Hub, who have hosted us in this really great venue. We work very closely with them to support persons with disability. We also want to thank Institute for Public Finance, who support to have this really successful event. And Jimmi Gathu, we want to thank you sincerely for your passion and for moderating us so well. Let's give Jimmy a clap. I mean, he's done so well. No one is acknowledging you so far. So thank you, Jimmy. When we requested him to, Jimmy was like, anytime, because this is an issue so close to his heart. So thank you, everybody, and let's continue to inspire action, as we have said. So I think, Grace, you want to say something?
So I'm a firm believer in solutions, and our mantra is usually inspire, empower, impact. So you can check out our social media pages, Dream Dreams Initiative, for you to join our solutions. We have soccer tournaments, we have road trips for a cause, we have the Ndoto beads. You were asking about how culture can be impactful. These beads, the ones I'm wearing, are made by teenage mothers who support through the Ndoto beads. So for them to get money to transform back to school or also take care of their babies, because caregiving is usually a big issue. So let us channel the energy that we have into creating the solutions that we can for other people, so that the generations who come after us do not have to experience what we're experiencing currently.
Okay. You done, Catherine?
Yes,
Okay.
great. I think, thank you very much to our speakers. We'll definitely be inviting you again, and also invite us when you have some activities that we can participate in. And of course, everybody here. So like we said, let us continue to inspire action. Let us continue to work together on this issue.
Thank
Jimmy,
you, Catherine.
back to you.
We're not chasing you away. There's still some bitings and an opportunity to have discussions. No, we're done. We're done. If you have any if you have a question, our guests. No. What I'm saying is, because we have to wrap. This kids too. You are able to have access to our guests, the speakers. If you have any questions that you want to put forward, now is the opportunity to do that. As you're having something to eat, and also make sure you've what do you call that? A barcode? Is that QR? Hey, QR code. Sorry, I'm not drunk. Yeah, QR code, and you can also send your comments there. Okay. We're actually half an hour late, so thank you so much. Please don't leave before you have something to eat and drink, and engage with our speakers and government officials. If you have any questions to ask any of them, now you're free to do so freely. Thank you very much.